Senator, when you're ready to begin.
On. There we go. Good morning, members, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present SB 66. This bill aims to streamline and improve career technical education programs at the California community colleges by improving data collection and updating reporting requirements. Thank you. The Public Policy Institute of California estimates that our state will face a labor shortage of 1.5 million workers with some college education by 2025. In 2014, the Community College Board of Governors commissioned the Task Force on Workforce Job Creation and a Strong Economy to help address this skills gap. The task force, consisting of representatives from community colleges, the business community, labor groups, public agencies involved in workforce training, K through 12 policymakers, and community-based organizations, spent a year convening town halls and came up with requirements. SB 66 addresses two of these recommendations that require legislative fixes. Specifically, this bill would require the California Department of Consumer Affairs to make a licensure information available to the California Community College Chancellor's Office for the purposes of matching students and evaluating the outcomes of career technical education programs. Second, align the state accountability reporting requirements with the Federal Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act to remove reporting inefficiencies for programs receiving multiple sources of funding. I would note that this bill has received no votes, and also note that it is not very often that the Chamber and Labor are aligned on something, so that is good. Members, I would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Let's move to testimony and support.
Mr. Chair and members, Vince Stewart with the Community College Chancellor's Office. We're the sponsor of this legislation. I certainly want to thank Senator Leyva for her authorship. I think she's pretty much explained the specifics of this bill. We think it's incredibly important for our career technical education programs. And my colleague and I are here to answer any questions that you might have and respectfully request your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
Chancellor's Office here to provide technical assistance.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Additional testimony and support.
Matthew Canty with the California Community Colleges Association of Occupational Education in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Hawthorne with the California Hospital Association in support.
Thank you. Let me ask if there's additional testimony and support. Hearing and seeing none, let me ask if there is testimony in opposition. Hearing and seeing none, let me turn it to members on the dais for questions. Hearing and seeing none. Senator, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for an aye vote.
All right. Thank you, Senator. I am a strong proponent of career technical education and appreciate the measure you have before us. This bill has been moved by Mr. Daly, seconded by Mr. Jones. It does have this measure is due pass to appropriations, and it does have a recommendation of aye from the chair. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Salas.
Aye.
Salas, aye. Bro. Baker. Baker, aye. Bloom. Campos. Chavez.
Aye.
Chavez, aye. Daly. Daly, aye. Dodd. Eggman. Gatto. Gatto, aye. Gomez. Holden. Jones. Jones, aye. Mullen. Ting. Wood. Wood, aye.
Okay, Senator, that measure is on call 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, members, we are waiting for an author. I believe Sargents has contacted both Senator Pavley and Senator Hernandez on their measures before the committee. We will grant them a few minutes to get to the hearing room.
Mr. Chair, if we're waiting for authors, would it be appropriate to take add-on votes for prior bills?
Yeah, we could do that. Let's go. I'm sorry. All right, let's go ahead and, so we'll lift the call on the items that are on call. That way everyone can add on while we're waiting for authors. But let's go ahead and just start at file item number 1 and work our way through. I see Mr. Bloom has joined us now. Mr. Bloom, we're lifting the call. We missed you. So let's go ahead and work through the file, Madam Secretary. This is file item number 1, SB 66.
Bro. Bloom. Bloom, aye. Campos. Dodd. Eggman. Gomez. Holden. Mullen. Ting.
Measures on call 8-0. Let's move to file item number 3, file item number 4, SB 778.
Bloom. Bloom, aye. Campos. Dodd. Eggman. Gomez. Holden. Mullen. Ting. Seven to 1 measures back on call.
That measures 7-1 back on call. We're moving to file item number 5, SB 999. Oh, I'm sorry. File item number 6, SB 1039.
Baker. Baker from I to no. Bloom. No. 1039. Bloom, aye. Campos. Eggman. Gomez. Holden. Jones. Jones, no. Mullen. Ting. Vote is 5-5.
Okay. SB 1039, the vote is 5-5. That measure is still on call. Let's move to file item number 7, SB 1046 by Senator Hill. Madam Secretary, call the absent members.
Salas.
Salas, aye.
Salas, aye. Bloom. Bloom, aye. Campos. Dodd. Dodd, aye. Eggman. Gomez. Holden. Jones. Jones, aye. 12-0 measures out.
Okay, that measures out 12-0. File item number 8, SB 1174 by Senator McGuire. Call the absent members.
Bro, Bloom, Bloom I, Campos, Dodd, Dodd I, Eggman, Gomez, Holden, Mullen, Ting. 9-0, measures out.
Okay, that measures out 9-0. Let's move to file item number 9, SB 1192 by Senator Hill. Call the absent members.
Bloom, Bloom I, Campos, Dodd, Dodd I, Eggman, Gomez, Holden. 8-2, measures on call.
Okay, that measures on call 8-2. File item number 10, SB 1193 by Senator Hill. Call the absent members.
Bro, Bloom, Bloom I, Campos, Dodd, Dodd I, Eggman, Gomez, Holden. Nine to 0, measures out.
Okay, that measures out 9-0. Let's go ahead and call the absent members on the consent calendar, and that way we can move to our author that is here. Call the absent members on the consent calendar, please.
Bloom, Bloom I, Campos, Dodd, Dodd I, Eggman, Gomez, Holden. 12-0.
12-0, that measure is out. Okay, at this time, Senator, if you'd like to approach, let's go ahead and begin with Senator Pavley's items. Senator Pavley, you have 2 items before us. Would you like to start with file item number 5, Senate Bill 999?
I would like to start, if I may, with the guide dogs all lined up behind me.
Absolutely. That would be Senate Bill 1331 members.
That might
That's
help
file
with
item
my
number
other
14.
bill. So can we just have them be witnesses?
And let
on
me
both
say
bills?
that all the guide dogs with all of the members in committee and all the traffic through this committee have behaved very well.
They've
So we
actually
appreciate
been
that.
excellent, and I think they appreciate the carpeting on the floor because they spent quality hours. Let me get them seated. And just by way of introduction, you may wonder why I'm carrying a bill on guide dogs. Well, I have as an assembly member, but our family's raised 4 guide dogs for the blind. Children did as part of their 4-H projects. And since then, we've had one of those dogs retire as this guide dog that was in service for 7 years. He retired back home. I didn't know guide dogs retired, and then the puppy raisers get them back. And now we have a 14-year-old one that needed what they call in guide dog parlance a career change. You can't say flunked out of guide dog school, but the dog needed a career change. She's back home, owns the house, and so actually over the years, 6 guide dogs coming and going. And so I feel very comfortable, as if I'd back up right now, I'd trip over one, being surrounded by guide dogs. So this is a bill for the Council of the Blind. And so, first of all, I'd like to offer the author's amendments that are listed on page 5 and 6 of the committee analysis. These amendments address additional concerns from the State Board of Guide Dogs for the Blind. We had a meeting in my office with your consultant attending as well on these different subjects. The amendments include a requirement that staff from out-of-state schools provide follow-up services to California residents and must be fingerprinted similar to other licenses in California. We found out how quickly you can get fingerprinted with now online kinds of options and opportunities. That makes sense. So today I'm joined by some very important, I call them special guests or VIPs, to draw attention to the need for improved services for the blind and the visually impaired in California. SB 1331 is sponsored by the California Council for the Blind, an organization that has represented blind and visually impaired consumers since 1934. And interestingly enough, was the original sponsor of the legislation creating our state guide dog board back in 1947. SB 1331 makes 3 modest reforms to the guide dog board. First, the bill seeks to increase the membership of actual guide dog users on the board. an important requirement for consistency's sake over a period of time that we have the actual voices in the room that are guide dog users. Second, this bill requires the development of a fact sheet explaining the role of the board and requires its distribution to all graduates of California guide dog schools. And third, this bill allows an out-of-state school to provide very limited follow-up services in California if several conditions are met. So let's say someone from out of state trained with the dog, and the handler that trained the dog, all those people are out of state. If and when the school must provide the original training to the California resident dog, it must be certified by the International Guide Dog Federation, that's a licensed entity, and it must provide the board 3-day notice prior to arrival in California. The only exception would be for an emergency in which a dog has been injured, and that would be a 24-hour notification in that kind of emergency. I wish to note that this provision to allow out-of-state follow-up care, the board has provided considerable enforcement powers. The board can refuse any personnel who have committed certain violations, and it gives the board full disciplinary authority to act if a consumer is adversely impacted by an out-of-state school providing such services. The pathway for follow-up services now in Senate Bill 1331 is very important to many blind individuals in California. In recent years, the state board has interpreted its authority as requiring all out-of-state schools to have California licensure, even if they are only providing very limited follow-up care. This has created some problems and growing backlash because there's never been a single incident of inappropriate follow-up service by out-of-state instructors in California. SB 1331 will enable the guide dog user to continue to obtain assistance from the instructor that knows the student, knows the behavior and personality of the dog to ensure true consumer protection. I have with me 2 witnesses today. First up will be Ken Metz, President of the Guide Dog Users of California, and second, Frank Welt, First Vice President of California Council of the Blind. And with me also is Jeff Tom, President of the California Council of the Blind and Legal Counsel, who's available to answer any questions you may have. So Mr. Metz, if that's all right. Who's in charge? Oh, Mr. Salas. Okay. We have first up the President of the Guide Dog Users of the Blind.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, let's go ahead and move to testimony and support.
Good afternoon, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak today. First of all, I would like to thank Senator Pavley for sponsoring this bill. My name is Ken Metz, and my guide dog, who's behind me here because she likes the senator, is Kari, and I've had her now for 5 years. Kari is from a California school, from Guide Dogs of America. But you know, my first guide dog was also from a California school 53 years and 2 days ago when I received him. And I have been to California schools most of my time. I've also been to one out-of-state school way back in my career when I had another dog. And I have never had an incident that has been detrimental to my safety or the public safety in all that time. I certainly appreciate the fact that the puppy raisers do such a great job in what they do with the dogs. But as far as the licensing goes, that's one of my little, pardon the pun, pet peeves, I guess, the way it's been handled the last few years. Because, you know, for the first 60 years of this California State Board of Guide Dogs for the Blind, there was never anything said about the out-of-state schools coming into California to do any aftercare or follow-up work, whichever you'd like to use. It has taken all those years for the board to finally say to itself, you know, we're probably going to try and use some of our power to change and utilize the law that was put into effect when it began it was assembled in 1947, began 1948. The state board has always had a great reputation in California. But once they decided to tell people who were blind that if they made an informed choice of going to an out-of-state school, whether it be Guiding Eyes for the Blind in New York, Leader Dog in Michigan, the Seeing Eye in New Jersey, they were trying to basically say to people, you have to go where there's a licensed school, and it seems to me that they were basically saying you stay in California. Well, there are a few situations here. One, a person is allowed to make an informed choice. People go with reputation by where their friends had been, the type of training they had, what they heard from their friends, and that's what made them decide to perhaps go to a California school or an out-of-state school, such as those that I mentioned and several others. But all of a sudden, if the person went out of state and they came back, or if a person lived out of state and got a dog and moved to California, in order to get the follow-up care they needed at times, especially during an emergency of possibly getting hit by a car, or possibly due to a dog attack, which can sometimes ruin a dog's career if it isn't dealt with on an immediate basis, the board said, oh, you can't have that kind of care from your school. You would have to have a licensed trainer come out here. By the time that school would be able to get a licensed trainer out here, especially if they only had one licensed trainer even, it would be too late for that dog. It has to be dealt with immediacy. So we are definitely looking forward to the fact that the board itself will relinquish its power struggle to try and just say that now all of a sudden after these 6 decades of work that they can go ahead and see that the out-of-state schools must be licensed in order to help one of their graduate students from their school. You know, we've tried to work with the state board. We've actually worked with the state board of guide dogs for the blind and made attempts to get compromises over the last 3 years. And it took this bill that would at least get us to this point today to where we can tell them that we have had no difficulties with any of our guide dogs, our guide dog trainers from out-of-state schools, and that they should be treated equally, at least in the area of aftercare. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we are hoping that you will all approve for us today. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's move on to additional testimony and support. Please proceed.
Hello, my name's Frank Welty. I am here with my guide dog, Jeep. I'm the only blind guy in California who can legally drive a Jeep. And I am the immediate past president of Guide Dog Users of California, and I am the first vice president-elect of the California Council of the Blind. Over recent years, I've seen an eroding in the level of support that the organized guide dog user community has for the Guide Dog Board, and we believe that this bill will improve that situation considerably. First of all, by requiring that the Guide Dog Board produce a fact sheet and that schools distribute that fact sheet to their students, there will be an increased awareness among the community about the role of the Guide Dog Board and how the board can help students with guide dogs. Second, we believe that by increasing the number of working guide dog users on the board from 2 to 3, and by having 2 of those individuals representing the 2 statewide blindness consumer organizations in California, that the level of consumer involvement and participation in the board will increase, which will considerably increase the credibility of the board with the guide dog user community. Finally, the third issue that this bill addresses, which Mr. Metz has spoken to in considerable detail, is the issue of the provision of follow-up services by out-of-state guide dog schools. As Mr. Metz mentioned, this issue was not a problem for many, many years, and suddenly the Guide Dog Board has made it an issue. And I think they've done so because they have misunderstood the reality of the guide dog experience. Specifically, there is a huge difference between the initial training experience, which is very complex. There's the complexity of breeding guide dogs, the complexity of raising guide dogs, the complexity of training the dogs, and then the complexity of selecting students to whether they're suitable for having a guide dog, matching those students with their appropriate dog, and then training the new guide dog team. All of this requires considerable expertise and is rightly licensed because of its complexity. That's very different than what happens after graduation when the students are experienced users of their guide dogs. They know what they're doing. They know the schools they're working with. They're in a position to work more as colleagues than as students. And so I think that requiring licensure for those kind of relationships is overkill. Let me give you a quick analogy. When you build a new house or you're getting a major extension put on your house, you're going to use a licensed contractor because it's a big, expensive, complex job. By contrast, if you just need a little fix-it job done around your house, you're going to use a handyman. You don't need some kind of a complex contractor situation. It's the same way here. Requiring licensure for simple follow-up services is overkill, and it ends up restricting the freedom of choice of blind people to go to the school of their choice. Just one last comment I'm going to make before I finish, and that is that I'm aware that in the Guide Dogs Board's letter opposing this bill, they've raised questions about our stipulation that out-of-state providers of follow-up services would have to be from schools that are certified by the International Guide Dog Federation. IGDF is the leading professional certifying body for guide dog schools. Guide Dog Board would make you think that it's not a very big deal. It is. In fact, guide dog certification, the Guide Dog IGDF certification guidelines are so good that a few years ago, when the Guide Dog Board was in the process of revising California state guide dog regulations, they used IGDF guidelines as their best practices model. So when we require that out-of-state providers of services be associated with the International Guide Dog Federation, that means that we're getting quality and that we can trust what we're doing. They don't need an additional license to certify that they're all right. It's not like the Seeing Eye is going to be sending criminals out to support their students. Please support SB 1331. Support the freedom of guide dog users to choose the schools they go to and the respect of the values of the guide dog community with respect to the Guide Dog Board. Thank you for your consideration.
Excellent.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
Sit. Good boy. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Margie Donovan. I am a natural-born citizen of the state of California. I have had guide dogs from out of state for 36 years, and I encourage you to please vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Judy Wilkinson. I am the president-elect of the California Council of the Blind and a proud member of its affiliate, the Guide Dog Users of California. Carly and I want you to vote for this bill so that when Carly and I might need a little assistance, we can have our trainers from the Seeing Eye in New Jersey come to work with us. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jean Andros, and I belong to the Guide Dog Users of California. I highly and strongly recommend that you support Senate Bill 1331.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional testimony and support, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Gil Johnson. I'm from San Leandro, California, and I'm here with my guide dog, Harley, and I don't ride him, though. He's a wonderful, he's also my best friend. I got him from the Seeing Eye. Follow-up services that I have needed have not been available because of the board's opposition to having skilled trainers coming in from out of state. And the people at Seeing Eye know me, they know my dog, and they are the people that I want to help me travel safely and independently.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
And they've been waiting since 9 a.m.
Right here.
It's a busy morning.
Hi, my name is Janet Snow, and I have a guide dog I received from Guide Dogs for the Blind of California. I live in Redding, California. I am with the National Federation for the Blind of California, and I support this bill.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Carla Scroggins. My dog Kendi is from Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, California, and I am with the National Federation of the Blind of California, as well as a legislative committee member for the California Association of Guide Dog Users, and I ask for your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Wursman from Redding, California, and I am a member of the National Federation of the Blind, and I too am I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Penny Valdivinos, and I'm from Bakersfield, California, and I support this bill. I'm from CCB. I've been the president of the Greater Bakersfield Council of the Blind, and I'm on the board of directors at the Independent Living Center of Kern County.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Additional testimony and support, please.
Hello, my name is Mike Kelly. I'm from Sacramento, California. I'm a member of the NFB. This is Patch from the Seeing Eye in New Jersey, and I support 1331.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda O'Neill. I am with Mara Lee, my 6th guide dog from Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael. Now, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but I got my first dog 48 years ago. I am a member of the California Council of the Blind and of Guide Dog Users of California, and I strongly support this bill.
Hi, my name is Lena Contreras. I'm from Davis, California, and I have a black lab from Guiding Eyes in New York. And I urge you to support this bill, so if I need follow-up for any reason, that we can get it to keep my partnership together. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
My name is Robert Upham. I'd like to thank the Sergeants at Arms for their excellent guiding. I stand here today in support of AB 1331.
Thank you. Additional testimony and support.
Jody Hicks, representing the California Academy of Eye Physicians and Surgeons in support. And just want to say, best behaved witnesses in the Capitol.
Thank you. And let me thank all the witnesses that not only made the trip up here, but actually sat through the entire hearing since 9 a.m. And I know a lot of you got here before 9 a.m. So appreciate your patience and appreciate the well-behaved guide dogs as well. So let me ask at this time if there's additional testimony and support. Hearing and seeing none, let me move to testimony in opposition. Please approach.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brian Skewes with the State Board of Guide Dogs for the Blind. I'll keep this very brief. You like me to come up there?
Please proceed.
Sorry about that. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your time. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. The board has no intention of preventing Californians from obtaining a guide dog from any school of their choosing, nor is it the board's intention of preventing follow-up services from occurring in California. The board believes that obtaining licensure and the examination process is the best way to ensure consumer protection. The board's received our detailed letter of opposition, so I just want to address one particular topic today. The board's opposed to this bill in both policy and procedural perspectives. While the board appreciates the senator's attempts to address some of the procedural concerns in the bill, there's one specific policy concern that I'd like to point out. The board's concerned with the precedent that will be set if this bill is enacted. This bill allows service providers who are not licensed or regulated in another state to come into a regulated marketplace and provide their service. There are several markets in California that are regulated but are not regulated in all 50 states. This bill sets precedent that individuals who have businesses in another state where their profession is not regulated are exempt from licensure in California. And this is a dangerous and slippery slope. For these reasons and the reasons outlined in our letter, I request your no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask if there is additional testimony in opposition. Hearing and saying none, let me allow the senator an opportunity to respond to the opposition if you so choose.
Certainly, and I've had, my staff's had multiple meetings. I've had 2 meetings myself with the board and the Council of the Blind in the same room with dogs, talking about this. And we've taken several amendments, and appreciate working with Brian and the board to satisfy some of their concerns, and that is safe situations for blind people that have dogs in California, and make sure that it makes sense. So the amendments we've taken, and I wanted to go over them since this has been addressed, is 3 days prior to arrival in the state for follow-up services in the event there's an accident or something. I can't tell you the bond that is so important between the guide dog owner, the guide dog trainer that trained the owner with their dog. That's almost an inseparable bond. So in the event of a problem, there, with a 3-day notice to the board, people will come into the state only if it's severe emergency. 24-hour notice is required. One thing they required, they said, we don't know who these people are. Now they have to have a name. We know an address. We know where they're from. We also, at their request, to make sure that they're legitimate people, they're going through fingerprinting. And out-of-state people, because we now know it can be done within 24 hours. That seems technically okay, and it covers any concerns they have that these are people that wouldn't have the best interests of the blind person in mind. And lastly, we're requiring an out-of-state school to provide written information about the state guide dog board services to consumers whenever follow-up services are rendered in California. I ask for your aye vote. I think this is a carefully crafted bill, and appreciate the support and indulgence of this committee.
Thank you, Senator. I will take that as your close unless there are questions from members on the dais. Hearing and seeing none. Senator, thank you for accepting the amendments that are outlined in the analysis, as I believe you said in your opening statement. Appreciate that. That does have, this measure has an aye recommendation from the chair. It has been moved by Mr. Daly. I need a second. Second by Ms. Eggman. With that, Madam Secretary, call the roll. This is file item 14, SB 1331 by Senator Pavley. Do pass as amended to appropriations.
Salas.
Aye.
Salas, aye. Bro. Baker. Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom. Aye. Bloom, aye. Campos. Aye. Campos, aye. Chavez. Daly. Aye. Daly, aye. Dodd. Aye. Dodd, aye. Eggman. Aye. Eggman, aye. Gatto. Aye. Gatto, aye. Gomez. Holden. Aye. Holden, aye. Jones. Mullen. Ting. Wood. Aye. Wood, aye. 10 to 0.
Okay, that measures out 10 to 0. We'll allow other members to add on. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for everyone that came up.
Thank you.